and today's question focuses on NC State. We did this last week for UNC and Duke, where we're finishing up the series with NC State. The question is, what is their ceiling and what is their floor? We're looking at win-loss records. If things go right, how high can they soar? If things go wrong, how far can they fall? What is their ceiling? What is their floor? My ceiling for NC State, and by the way, for Duke and UNC, I included bowl games. For NC State, I did not. And I'll explain why in a second, but just when you hear this number, this is why I say it.
Okay.
11-1 is how I set their ceiling. I think the obvious way to get there would be a loss to Tennessee or Clemson and early on in the season.
Sure.
Then they put together everything. The transfers seem to mesh, and they win the rest, run the table.
Their schedule is built for them to do that.
Floor, I go 7-5.
Really?
The schedule makes it really, really tough to see them winning less than 8. So I go 7-5 for the one unexpected, yikers. Western Carolina, Louisiana Tech, Northern Illinois, Wake, Stanford, Syracuse, Cal, Duke, Georgia Tech. A lot of winnable games there, right? Now, here's why I didn't include the postseason. I didn't include the bowl game. For Duke and UNC, it was kind of easy, right? Does it include the bowl game or not? Does it include the one possible bowl win or not? With NC State, you could take, if they go 11-1, if they hit their ceiling, which could also be they beat Tennessee and Clemson and then suffer a trap game loss, which
could happen.
Yes, and we see it in college football every single year. If it does end up 11-1, then you're talking ACC championship, which could make it a 13-game season. And then you could add college football playoff. First round could make it a 14-game season. Next game would make it a 15-game season. So it was tough to put together a record of is their ceiling, you can't honestly say once you get to the dance anything can happen, and then not say an 11-1 season could end up like a 15-win season, which I don't think anyone's predicting. But with all of the true, you just saw with basketball, right? You get to a single elimination tournament and anything can happen. So I think 11-1 in the regular season would be the ceiling, with the understanding that the team is wildly talented, but their two toughest games, at least when you look at preseason rankings and all of that, come in the first month, which I think if you could organize their schedule, if Dave Doeren, or actually, because Dave Doeren would probably do the football guy thing and put all the tough games right at the front because he's a football guy. If a fan could put together their schedule, I think you would just borderline flip it, right? Just take the Clemson and Tennessee games and put them in the last month, and then I might go the ceiling is 12-0. Because the thing I'm worried about with State is how long it takes Robert Anae, the offensive coordinator, and how long it takes the players themselves to figure out what all of these new pieces do best and how to use them best, right? If they put it together right out the gate, that's ceiling. If it takes them 9 games, that's floor. You know what I mean? That's where the tough part comes in. Whenever they figure it out, I think they're going to be very, very good and very, very difficult. Even if they hit their floor, or let's say they go 7-5, I still don't think you want to see them week 11, right? Because that would be oh, geez, we're not even going to get credit for a good strength of schedule win because they already have 5 losses. But this team we're seeing in end of November is not the team we saw back at the beginning of September. And I think that's the worry, right? So I think they could easily be the most successful team this century for NC State. Easily might not be the word. I think it's possible they could be the most successful team this century for NC State. I also think there's a world where at the end of the season we're going man, they got a lot of dudes that were really good on that roster, and the record just doesn't quite add up. And that's because of the challenges of operating in the transfer world where you just bring in a lot of guys.
I think at minimum, for me, my floor for them is 9.
I mean,
that's my floor for them is 9.
Okay, so you're saying 9? Would you put their ceiling at undefeated?
I'd probably put their ceiling at 12. I'm going to factor in an ACC championship game.
I mean, that's That's optimistic.
Because I think looking at their schedule, you can see them slipping up against Tennessee and Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of those games are at Carter Finley. And they have a rivalry game at the end of the year on the road at North Carolina. Anything can happen, we always say in a rivalry game, right? To me, that's it. Every other game on that roster, they should win. Or on that schedule, win.
I agree. They'll be the more talented team in every game outside of those three, and probably even in I'd say those three, either like you mentioned, a rivalry game toss-up, or depending on how you value different positions, would explain that. Mm-hmm. I just think there's a possibility where they aren't playing to the level of their talent.
Oh, for sure,
for a little bit there, and that would be extremely frustrating. But I think it's a possibility. So there you go. Obviously, their ceiling is the highest, according to my preseason thoughts, the highest of any team in the Triangle.